up close and in person. These are the new NHL jerseys from Fanatics. Recently, I was invited to be part of a small group who got a hands-on first look at the new sweaters in Las Vegas, only 2 days after the official reveal. I got the chance to interview the people who led the creation of the Fanatics NHL jerseys to hear about how it all came together, including a design problem that sent them back to the drawing board. In this video, I'll share their insights, preview the new practice and retail jerseys that are on the way, and give you my first-hand review on all of it. Right now, as Icethetics presents Inside the Fanatics NHL Jersey Launch. Friday, June 28th. It's 110 degrees in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's a big day for hockey. The 2024 NHL Draft at Sphere is hours away, taking place just 4 days after the Florida Panthers won their first Stanley Cup. The final game action for those Addy Zero jerseys from Adidas. On June 26, the NHL and Fanatics officially unveiled the new uniforms that will be worn beginning with the 24-25 season. It's the start of a new era, but if the changes don't seem drastic, it's because they're not.
We wanted to come into this and say, hey, let's not just make the jersey change for the sake of change.
Keith Leach is the Vice President and General Manager for the NHL partnership at Fanatics. He oversees the development of every jersey in the league, and he's been doing so for quite some time. Back in 2005, Keith guided the creation of the Reebok Edge uniform system, and he supervised the transition to Adidas in 2017. 5 years ago, he joined Fanatics, where he's now shepherding the next generation of hockey sweaters.
This is a milestone moment for Fanatics to be able to put our brand on the NHL jerseys, to kind of expand our authentic connection to the fans as well as to the NHL. It's been a couple years. I think it's really exciting in the fact that we came in with a strategy that was all about making the product that's going to work for the player. Ultimately, the player is our end user. So we immediately made two major decisions. One was bringing on a high-level design team led by Dom Fillion.
For us, we're really excited with this launch. I think right out of the gate when the announcement went out, we met with the teams, right? Within a few days, we were in the locker room, met with the equipment managers, and really wanted to get a pulse check.
Dom Fillion serves as creative director at Fanatics, where he leads NHL design projects, including the recent rebrand of the Anaheim Ducks.
We knew that the team wanted to, lean towards the color orange, really kind of make that as a brand statement. And with that, we saw opportunity in how to refresh and retool the primary mark, how to connect better the duck foot as well as this identity. It was something that, having the opportunity to be a part of, right?
Like Keith, Dom's fingerprints have been all over NHL uniform design for almost 2 decades.
My first jersey design was really in Dallas for the All-Star game when we launched the uniform for the Reebok Edge. So that was the first brand statement, right? Bringing innovation to the eyes, creating a jersey that was pretty bold at the time, really kind of streamlined aesthetic versus something that was more loose, that was used to worn by the players. So that was kind of the introduction. And starting around 2009, I started to really lead all the uniform design for Reebok at the time.
Dom joined Fanatics last year, just 2 months before the NHL jersey announcement. Since then, he's assembled a group of skilled and experienced designers.
We've got a design team that is dedicated specifically to uniform and identity. We have designers that comes in with mixed background. Some were very familiar to hockey design, some were, identity designers. And, the level of passion that's coming out of this group is unbelievable.
Now, let's get back to Keith, who said Fanatics made 2 major decisions after getting the NHL on-ice jersey contract. The first was Dom and his design team. He said the second was the relationship with SP Apparel,
which was critical because they're obviously the industry leaders in making hockey uniforms. They've been doing it for nearly 50 years for all the brands.
The SP factory in Quebec has assembled NHL jerseys for Adidas, Reebok, CCM, and more, and maintaining that institutional knowledge was another important way for Fanatics to avoid any missteps in assuming their new role. Right from the start, they were engaging familiar design and manufacturing expertise, but after getting their initial prototypes out to NHL players, a problem was lurking around the corner.
So immediately we went into the locker rooms and started asking, via the equipment managers, what they had been seeing, what's working, what may be areas of improvement. So for the most part, we had great response to fit, weight, breathability. But what did come up is there were some durability challenges. And what I mean by that is specifically we were finding areas of the sleeve that were breaking down.
In early testing, sustained friction along the boards was causing the sleeves to tear. Improvements were needed. In fact, Fanatics even mentioned this in the press release announcing their Authentic Pro uniforms a few weeks ago. But it was a bit surprising to hear. So, what was going on?
One of the things that our development team found that might have been an area of change was going from a regular, we call it virgin poly, to a recycled poly, where that might have caused more board burn, just a change in the material.
That might leave you wondering, why change the material? Couldn't they just keep using what Adidas used? Well, no. See, Adidas spent a lot of their own time and money on research and development to create new custom fabrics intended to improve player performance, the focus being lighter, cooler, and stronger, all under the direction of Keith and Dom, by the way. But of course, many of those technological advances would have been owned and patented by Adidas, and therefore could not simply be taken on by Fanatics, not without what I'm sure would be a pricey licensing agreement. To make it worth their while, Fanatics would have to come up with their own materials. You heard Keith mention virgin poly and recycled poly. If you're new to those terms, here's a quick breakdown. Polyester is the go-to material for athletic wear like hockey jerseys. It's lightweight, durable, and quick drying. Virgin polyester refers to a product made from new raw materials, including petroleum, using processes that pollute the environment. Recycled polyester, on the other hand, uses fewer raw materials and is a more sustainable option. As part of their own company-wide sustainability efforts, in 2015 Adidas partnered with Parley, a nonprofit working to protect fragile marine ecosystems. Basically, they're trying to keep non-biodegradable plastics out of our oceans. That partnership produced an Adidas initiative called End Plastic Waste and led to the creation of the 2019 NHL All-Star jerseys, which were made up of threads created from recycled plastic. That innovation led to the Adidas Prime Green jerseys, which rolled out in September of 21. Since then, the uniforms for all 32 NHL clubs had been made from recycled plastics, and there's a small tag on the back hemline of every jersey to highlight this. With Adidas now out of the NHL picture, Fanatics had to develop their own sustainable fabrics. While there are many benefits to recycled polyester, one known drawback is reduced durability.
So we took that to heart. Design development team quickly went back, built some prototyping, had the opportunity to go back in front of the equipment managers. Let's call this in June of 23. At their annual meetings, we literally got to sit with every one of them, walk through the prototyping, took more feedback, and then our change was simply looking at that area of the sleeve and reintroducing almost like a second layer of fabric, but it needed to be seamless so it didn't infringe. That's a very sensitive area for the player to try it when they're wearing their gloves. We got to a position that was basically players said, this is great, equipment manager said, this is great, put them into the final specifications and started building the jerseys.
It's encouraging to hear how much work Fanatics put into building their jerseys, catching problems early so there was time to make adjustments before players hit the ice next season. It shows that even before the issues arose with the new Nike-designed MLB jerseys, the Fanatics NHL crew was already staying ahead of the game. And though we won't see these jerseys in-game action until preseason in September, we have gotten a look at another Fanatics-made jersey on the ice already. In the week following the draft, development camps were held around the NHL. Teams welcomed their newest prospects for a handful of practice sessions and scrimmages, during which those players would have to be issued team jerseys. But there was a bit of a disconnect for many fans. Despite coming off a week that was all about the new Fanatics jerseys, the Adidas practice jerseys still pervaded those development camps, with one notable exception. The Utah Hockey Club is a new franchise joining the NHL this summer, as the Arizona Coyotes franchise remains inactive and awaiting new ownership, with Alex Morello officially bowing out. Unlike the rest of the league, Utah had no existing stock of Adidas jerseys to pull from. Instead, they became the first team to put the new Fanatics-made practice jerseys on the ice. And I thought it might be a good time to go back to my Fanatics First Look video from 4 months ago to see how they compare with my initial reporting. For one thing, the 3 stripes up the sides are gone. Obvious, given that that is Adidas's pattern. And the Fanatics F logo will appear on the chest in place of the Adidas mark. Not exactly a stretch on those, but they do check out. Another change is around the shoulders. What was shown to me was not a physical jersey, but rather a graphic rendering. So I can't say for sure if the dimpled pattern from Adidas will be there, but I suspect not. Check. That dimpled pattern is not featured on any Fanatics jerseys going forward. It even changes the shape of the NHL Shield container as well, no longer this pentagon design. And around the shoulders are elements that remind me of Nike's hockey jersey template, an eye shape similar to what you see here on the Team Canada Olympic jerseys. Yep, that is indeed what we're seeing here on the shoulders. It is a bit of an odd look that I hope does not start to find its way onto game jerseys in the future. As for the neckline, the Adidas practice jerseys were the same as their game jerseys, but under Fanatics, it's an all-new construction. There's thin piping around the collar with a zigzag stitch to add durability. So, what else? The biggest change, though, is the crest treatment. As a reminder, this is what we got from Adidas, a simple roundel with the team's logo inside and name wrapped around the circle. Under Fanatics, things are changing. There's a new roundel that takes a bit of inspiration from the old CCM practice jerseys, and instead of center ice, like you see here, the new text reads, "Property of" on top, with the team's city beneath. It all looks a little something like this. But this is just my own rendering, based on what I saw. Check. The property of design was seen again when a catalog image leaked, and what we see here confirms it. However, Utah is a bit of an outlier because of their lack of a proper team name and logo so far. Since their crest simply uses the Utah wordmark, the roundel reads "Property of" with Utah in the middle and "Hockey Club" around the bottom. For other teams, it'll be their location around the bottom. But there were other outliers even during the Adidas era. Take the Toronto Maple Leafs, who spell out their entire name in their logo crest. It would have been redundant to write it out again in the circle, so instead, theirs was just blank. But anyway, there's more. From there, I did a little digging and learned about a crucial new detail. Adidas used a heat press application for their practice jerseys, giving the crest that shiny finish. I'm told Fanatics will go a step beyond this, deploying fully embroidered, sewn-on crests. This is true too. It's a little tough to make out given the level of detail in the photos Utah has shared online, but these crests are fully embroidered. And as a funny aside, check out what LA Kings prospects wore at their development camp. It might take a second to recognize, but that is the new Kings logo on the chest of these practice jerseys, not simply the old throwback design. I know these are just heat pressed, but it was a bit weird to see that new logo on an Adidas jersey, since there was never meant to be any crossover between Adidas and this Kings redesign. Anyhow, before we move on, there are a few more items of note from Utah. Check out the helmets worn at their development camp. Note the use of the team's tertiary logo, the one shaped like the state of Utah. This might be giving us a fuller picture of Utah's full uniforms. While they showed jersey renderings last month, we have not yet seen official plans for their helmets, gloves, pants, or socks. And for what it's worth, we still have not gotten a proper look at their official game jersey. It was not present at the draft or the Fanatics jersey event. All they had on display was a blank black jersey with the Utah stair-step crest and no sleeve or waist stripes. It's the same jersey that was handed out to Utah's draft picks, including first-rounder T.J. Ginla. And while we're on this photo, it's worth taking note of those new practice jerseys hanging in the background. But we don't see much beyond the collars, really. The Utah draft jerseys may have been a bit generic, but the team's president of hockey operations, Chris Armstrong, summed up their significance here.
And it was really important to us that our draft picks put on an NHL authentic jersey with Utah on the front of it. And there's only, this year's draft class will be, our draftees will be the only people to ever own one of these jerseys. They will not be available to sale. They will not be available to the public. So it's a special memento and a moment in history for our draft picks this year.
Definitely a nice item for those players to have. But getting back to the new practice jerseys for a moment, when can we expect to see the rest of the league get theirs from Fanatics? I'm told that more teams will have theirs soon, but everything will be in place by September when NHL clubs start holding their prospect tournaments and training camps. And that's about the same time these new practice jerseys will go on sale to fans. But if you are hoping for the embroidered crest on the retail versions, don't hold your breath. I'm told that may only apply to the player-issued jerseys. Still, there should be a good variety in the Fanatics retail offerings. In addition to the practice jerseys, the company confirmed 3 more tiers that will be available in stores, aligning with my first report from April. Working up from the base level, there's the Breakaway Replica. This is the existing Fanatics jersey line with those iron-on sublimated crests and shoulder patches. It may not be the highest quality, but it's an affordable option for casual fans, and it is staying at $135 US or $175 for customized player jerseys. The next level up is what Fanatics says will be equivalent to the Adidas Authentic jerseys that were made in Indonesia. If you bought an Adidas NHL jersey in the last 7 years, this is probably what you have. Fanatics calls this tier their premium line, and it will be priced the same as it was under Adidas, $180 US or $230 if you get a player's name on it. They describe this as close to the authentic on-ice jersey. But the best and most wallet-pounding news is that fans will now be able to purchase authentic on-ice jerseys at retail, the very jerseys that come out of the Quebec factory before making their way into NHL locker rooms. This option has not been made available for the past decade, and while it's nice to see Fanatics bringing it back, some fans might suffer a bit of sticker shock. They will reportedly retail for $425 US. That's a good chunk of money for a hockey sweater, but just keep in mind this is a top-of-the-line product. Jerseys don't get any more genuine than this. However, you might actually have to spend more than that to get one. For example, following their rebrand reveal, the Anaheim Ducks opened up pre-orders for the Authentic Pro edition of their new home jersey, starting at a whopping $500. And that's without player customization and with a non-optional sponsor advertisement sewn onto the chest. On the plus side, they will apparently include a first run patch on the inside of the jersey, denoting it as among the first to come out of the factory. But I'm not sure that's enough to justify the price tag. I am curious how many Ducks fans actually placed an order. Anyway, that's all I know about the retail side for now. We should find out more by September, when everything is scheduled to go on sale. And that brings us to one final thing.
And that one final thing brings me on camera, which I know is pretty rare for this channel, but I thought it was important because this last section of this video is my perspective. I wanted to share my thoughts on these new Fanatics jerseys because I was able to lay eyes on them firsthand, feel them, touch them, all that. So I think it's important to be able to share directly with you what I saw. And I thought I'd go unscripted on this one to give you my genuine thoughts, and so I apologize in advance for the wonky edits that you're likely to see throughout. All right, so Fanatics invited me to this event that they were holding for invited guests and media to see the new NHL on-ice jerseys that they're producing. It was really cool to be able to see them firsthand, be able to report back. But one thing that I want to make very clear, they did not pay in any way for this coverage. This is not a sponsored video. They didn't pay for flights or hotels. I got my own room at the Venetian, by the way, and the view was incredible. We lucked out and got a room that was facing Sphere. So when we watched the draft from the hotel on Friday night, we could see what was going on the outside of the Sphere. But the important thing to know is that Fanatics did not pay in any way for coverage or anything like that. What they did do is, you might see in the background, they did give out gift bags to everybody who came through. And I wanted to show you what was in there, just so you have a sense. First, there was this small gift bag, and I'll just kind of hold it up to make sure it's visible here. But inside there is a kind of a travel mug. So it just has the Fanatics NHL logo lockup for their partnership. It's a nice mug. I've actually been using it for a couple of weeks at work, which is really nice. They gave a puck. I'll pull that out of the bag here so you can see. That's what's on the puck, just the lockup logo, right? The last thing here was is a pin, and I'll leave it in the bag, and hopefully you can see it. But basically, it's the Fanatics and NHL logo together. Yeah, so that's all they had in these little gift bags. That's what was being provided to people on the way out, people who came to the event. It wasn't too crowded. They had basically a setup at the Encore, and they were in the Tower Suites area I went in, checked in, they sent me up the elevator, and they had a couple of suites set up. But we'll get to that in a second. The other thing I wanted to show you was what they another gift item that they sent out, or they sent us home with, which is in this bag. It's a lot bigger, as you can see. But it came with this little card, and I'll read that to you real quick. But basically it says, the Fanatics NHL Made in Canada program is using elevated materials and construction details. The garment was meticulously handcrafted in Canada with 4 needles, flat lock stitch. We used a vintage dyed process for softness and subtle variation from piece to piece. This wear everywhere classic will fade to perfection over time with regular use. Wear with pride and full comfort. Fade to perfection is a bit of an odd choice, right? I guess a lot of people like that kind of faded look, but it doesn't bode well for the history that they have with merchandise that maybe isn't quite up to par on things. But anyway, so what this card is on the other side, basically they have a list of all the teams, and what they were doing is telling people who came, if you wanted, pick your favorite team, and they were going to offer a t-shirt and hoodie from this Made in Canada line. I was kind of joking with the guy that was there. I have kind of 2 teams, right? I'm from Tampa, so the Lightning are my first team, but I live in Seattle now and have for a long time, and I'm a Kraken season ticket holder, so there's that. How do I choose? And they said, no worries, we'll get you one of each. So I want to show you that real quick, but there was a t-shirt and a hoodie. I just want to give you a look at those, just so you can see. So this is the first item. This is the hoodie. Kind of doing my best to show it here, but it's just it looks like a pretty regular hoodie. I haven't worn it yet, so I don't know how comfortable it is, but it seems pretty nice, like a pretty nice item. And then the other thing, I'll move the bag out of the way here, was this kind of t-shirt, but it's really like a heavy duty shirt. It's really kind of thick. So in this kind of summer weather we're having right now, I don't think I'd wear it around. But they all have this little tag, the Made in Canada Fanatics line with the NHL hologram. So those are the gift bags they offered on the way out. I show you those just so you get a sense of that's what was offered, basically. It's the kind of thing you see when organizations hold events like this where they want that coverage. They want to send people home with some nice stuff, some branded stuff especially. So they're nice, they're great. They're not going to in any way sway my opinion on the quality of the jerseys. So that's what I wanted to get into next, since I have been able to see those firsthand. So it was Friday, June 28th, the morning of the NHL draft at Sphere. Just a block or two away at Encore, the Tower Suites is where they were holding this event. Basically, they had a couple of suites reserved, one of which had all of the jerseys on display. Basically, they took one of the bedrooms, removed all the furniture from it, and they set up these pedestals with a holographic Fanatics logo. And then on top, there's like a rotating mannequin so that the jerseys, you could actually spin them around. I didn't really see a need for that because they're blank for the most part. The Kings and Ducks weren't blank. They did have numbers and a captain's patch on each of those. And I think that was just to showcase, what was new about these uniforms. Those are the only 2 teams that got new uniforms. Of course, Utah gets a new one as well, but that was not on display there. Like we saw, Utah's actual game jersey, I'm not sure any have come out of the factory yet. We did see one photo that was shared by Ryan Smith, kind of a smoky filter over everything. But I'm not sure if that was the actual jersey or if that was just sort of a digital rendering that they used the smoke to sort of hide the fact that it's not a real jersey. But hopefully we'll get to see the actual Utah Hockey Club jersey pretty soon. So like I said, the rest of the teams aren't really changing apart from the SoCal teams. You've got jerseys that you really recognize. You know all of these teams, you know all of these jerseys. They've been in use for a while now. On first look, honestly, nothing really seemed that different. You've got very familiar designs, familiar jersey construction. That's the same basic layout, the template that Adidas had. The main difference is the shoulders. Fanatics is getting rid of the dimpled pattern that you saw with Adidas. I kind of go back and forth on that one as far as, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? The folks I talked to there were very much like, well, that was kind of an Adidas thing, and do we really need it? Was it adding anything to the jersey? And I can see that argument for sure. To me, it just added a little extra layer of quality to the overall jersey. It felt like a special item because it had this special texturing. So the fact that they won't have that, I wouldn't call it a huge downgrade. It's different. Really, it's going back. But getting back to the fabrics, I would also say that the underarm mesh that you see on the Fanatics jerseys looks basically the same as what was used for
or what was used by Adidas. And I think that the reason there is that's a function thing. I think the shoulder dimples were, I don't think that was a function. I don't think that was for breathability or anything like that. I think it was just to have it look different, to look interesting. Whereas with the underarm mesh, that was absolutely for breathability and comfort for the players while they're wearing these jerseys during a game. Beyond that, I can't really speak to any specific differences in the fabric. Obviously, you heard Keith talk about having to make some changes there because of the recycled polyester that they're using, which obviously is a different material than what Adidas used. And I kind of went through, I think, the reasons for all of that. But basically, I haven't spent a lot of time handling Adidas Adizero game jerseys. But what I can say is when I was in Tampa back in January for their third jersey launch, the black jersey, I did get to handle a game jersey there. That was one of the made in Canada jerseys. To be honest, I can't really tell you the difference between the fabrics. That's not something that I'm well versed in. I'm more interested in the design side. That's why it was really great to talk to Dom as well, because he's the kind of the design guy. By the way, I just have to say another big thanks to Fanatics for allowing me to talk to them, and for Keith and Dom. I'm appreciative to them for taking the time to chat. We had really good conversations, and I hope that some of those details were interesting and useful to you to hear. But back to the jerseys. I am going to be interested to see how these look on the ice when the time comes. I think probably next month. I think sometime in August we'll probably see some. I think that's when a lot of teams hold their prospect tournaments. I think some of those are in August, maybe September. But of course, training camps happen in September, so that's when teams are going to have their jerseys, especially preseason games. We'll see all the practice jerseys during the training camps, but then for preseason games, it'll be great to see how these jerseys look in action. To be honest with you, I mean, if you're a casual fan, if you're someone who doesn't really pay a lot of attention to jerseys, I doubt you'll notice a difference. Unless you're looking for the F flag on the back of the jersey, I don't think it's going to be a huge noticeable thing. Like I said, the shoulders are different. The logo on the back is different. Apart from that, the way it looks on a player, I think is going to be basically the same. I do know that after what happened with Nike and MLB back in the spring, there's a good chance people are going to be looking for mistakes. They're going to be looking for problems just because it paints a good social media story, I guess, to be able to, find errors. I'm not personally expecting anything like that. I don't think it's going to be anything significant in terms of differences. It's important, I think, to realize that when it comes to the NHL, the team that they have in place producing jerseys, these are people who really know their stuff and they pay attention to that detail. And I think you especially see it with Keith and Dom, knowing that they've been producing, they've been behind NHL jerseys for a long time. So if you've been enjoying those jerseys, I don't really see a reason why that quality would suddenly fall off a cliff. The only thing, and we didn't get into this in our interviews, but because obviously they're set up by Fanatics. So a question like, is Fanatics giving you all the resources you need to make the best jerseys you can, to put your best foot forward? I want to assume that they are. I want to believe that they are. But I don't know, and that wasn't really a topic that we could get into there. So you may have your thoughts on Fanatics as a whole. They are a very interesting company. They grew really fast, and I'm not sure they were prepared for it. But I think they're kind of learning from their mistakes, and they're making changes. They're trying to turn things around, and hopefully that all works out just in time for these NHL jerseys to show up. So the next time we're likely to hear from Fanatics will probably be around the reveal of some of the event jerseys that we're going to see during the season. Obviously, Winter Classic between Chicago and St. Louis, Stadium Series with Detroit and Columbus. We'll see some new jerseys there. And then, of course, Four Nations Face-Off. We're going to get new jerseys for those four teams taking part. I don't have any details to share on those just yet. I did ask Dom about it to, how's that process going? And he quite literally told me,
We're just getting started.
So there's nothing really to talk about there yet. The design team is just getting going. So we'll see how everything turns out. But I am going to maintain my optimism. I think as an early verdict goes, because I did promise an early verdict, I would say everything's looking good. They obviously put their best foot forward with this event that they did in Vegas, and it was generous of them to include Icethetics and all of that. So I do appreciate it. Going forward, what do we expect to change? There's obviously been talk about Fanatics coming up with their own template, possibly in the 26-27 season, after they've gotten their legs under them for a couple of years. From everything I've heard, kind of what I understand over there is they're not looking to reinvent the jersey.
Adidas did a really good job. And obviously the guys who designed the jersey for Adidas are the guys who are doing the work for Fanatics now. So I think they feel like they're in a good place. The feedback they've gotten from players, according to Keith and Dom, was that they're happy. The players like where the jerseys are. They don't want to see any big changes right now. I think if anything, they're going to be going to players and equipment managers to find out, what are the little tweaks that we can make here and there? What would be improvements to the jersey that you'd like to see? But I don't see any big changes happening in the near future. So we'll see whether it's next year or the year after. We'll keep an eye on it all right here, of course. And I think that about does it. If there were any questions that you have that I didn't get to answering here, drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to tackle them down there. And in the meantime, thank you for watching.
Be sure to leave a like on your way out if you could to make sure more fans see this video and others like it. Then subscribe to the Icethetics channel so you don't miss out on any future videos. That's all for now. See you next time.